Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. And on today's podcast episode, what we're talking about is called matrescence. And this is really a word to define the experience of becoming a mom and all of the different transformations, identity shifts, frustrations, overwhelm, delight, all of the mixed up emotions and all of the changes that come with becoming a mom are addressed in this concept of matrescence. And I've invited Dr. Angele Close to talk to me about matrescence and to share with all of us what it means to go through this process, how it changes us, all of the challenges about becoming a mom and going through matrescence, how it's like adolescence, and what are the beautiful gifts that come with becoming a mom. And I really love this conversation because Dr. Angele is the first person who taught me the word matrescence, and I only discovered this word while reading her book, which is called Unburdening Motherhood, which I love. And we did a whole series on her book a couple of months ago. You can find that in the show notes. We'll link it in there. But when I read about matrescence, it really hit me in a new way of understanding just how big of a deal it is to become a parent, become a mother in particular, and how much we change. And we're forever changed by the experience. Just like you start as a child and then you become an adult and you are no longer ever a child again. That's that process of adolescence. And becoming a mom really can be like a little bit of a mind fuck. So we talk about that and give you some insight and some strategies. And hopefully you just feel heard and seen and understood while listening to this episode. So please hop right into the interview with Dr. Angele. Okay, welcome, Dr. Angele. I'll call you Angele. Yeah, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here to talk about matrescence. So welcome back. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. This is my jam. This is my fun spot, and I'm very passionate about it. So love to be here with you.
Yeah, and right before we started recording, I was sharing how much I love your book, Unburdening Motherhood. And when I read it, I only had a PDF version. And then as soon as it came out, I got like my hard copy. And I really want you to get this into everybody's hands. Like anyone listening to this podcast, go on Amazon. I don't know, $12, $17. I don't remember, but Unburdening Motherhood, Dr. Angele Close, and get it because it's a book that really walks moms, particularly through healing from life. Yeah. So it walks moms through like healing from like their own childhood trauma or whatever came up from before, but also just the fact that they're moms now and there's guilt and there's like shame and all sorts of stuff that comes up, the good mom myth, which we talked about the last time you were on. So I just think that this book could be really powerful for women to read and heal, like walk themselves through what you've offered. And yeah, so I love it.
Oh, thank you so much, darling. I hope so. I mean, I hope it lands and gets into the hands of the mom who is ready for it and looking for a pathway. That
Yeah,
was my wish for the book, was to be able to guide people really through it.
right. I think we write
Hmm.
and produce and create content and show up in the world to be the person we wish we had.
Yeah.
And I know that's true for me. Like sometimes even my husband will say, too bad you don't have a parenting coach. Because like I also, I want support.
Yeah.
And so I've just become the person who I wished I had when
That's
I
right.
was going through matrescence, which is the topic for today. And I did not have the word matrescence. And I don't even know if I had it before I read your book. Like you were about to say before we started recording that it's starting to like pick up steam. There's a little bit more
Mhm.
conversation. So we wanted to hop on and like talk about it so that my audience can tap in. So let's just get into matrescence. Like, how do you define it? And I was hoping we could talk about what it is and then why it's helpful to define it. And then kind of like comparing it to adolescence a little bit, just giving people some
Mhm.
context for it. And then I wanted to share a little bit, and maybe you can share a little bit about your own journey kind of going through, or I don't know how you define where you're at in it. So I wanted to get into a little
Yeah.
bit of like that actual process that maybe someone who's not in this emerging matrescence stage can talk about, like kind of what that was like looking through the rearview mirror.
Hmm.
So let's just start with defining it, like matrescence. Like what the heck? What is it?
Yeah. Well, you say it, you pronounce it very well. I mean, because many people don't even know how to say it, right? I've been trying to train my husband, and he still is like, "What is it? Matrescence?" Like he's scared to say it. But you're saying it beautifully. Matrescence is like an adolescence, in the sense that it is a transformational journey. It's developmentally for everyone, although uniquely for every woman becoming a mother. So it's sort of like an umbrella term that represents all of the myriad of changes. So becoming a mom, and this includes whether it's biologically or adoptive, and it can start the moment you start thinking, I think I want to be a mother, is even the beginning of matrescence. And and it
Or, oh
affects,
shit, I'm gonna
yeah,
be a mother.
yes, exactly.
Because
Oh,
sometimes you're not,
oopsie.
yeah, you're not ready. And then you're
That's
like,
right.
kind of no matter what, wherever that hits you, like, I'm gonna be a mom or I want to be a mom. What does that look like? And then, oh,
That's
I'll
right.
just say this. So my friend and I really wanted to become moms. And we had this vision of ourselves very specifically that we were going to be gorgeous, okay,
Mhm.
moms, walking on the Venice, I live in Los Angeles, Venice boardwalk
Yeah.
with our babies in the strollers. And like in our minds, we were going to look super coiffed. Like our hair was going to be great, wind blown, nails done, like kick ass outfit and just these two little boys in strollers and they were just gonna like sit and just be like almost
Yeah.
accessories and I'm not all that vain or whatever, like I'm not really like that, but I just had this vision of what it was going to be like. I had no
Yeah.
idea what it
Yeah.
was going to be like. So
That's right. The
it's kind of
lived
like when you're a
reality.
kid and you're like,
That's
oh,
right.
teenagers are so cool.
Yeah. Totally. And that's part of matrescence is the fantasy versus the reality, right? Because that's exactly right. As we carry these ideas from the time we were little girls, maybe playing with dolls and pretending to be mom. And now fast forward, here we are. I mean, we've held these ideas either consciously or certainly subconsciously. And they're so different from the lived reality of motherhood. And so part of that's one of the many changes, right? So the Matrescence acknowledges this profound transformation that we go through, both through that, like our mindset, our identity, of course, even our relationships. Like, you know, you have certain relationships with friends. You mentioned your girlfriend, people find like, oh, now if I'm the first in my friend group, let's say, who's now having a child, and all those subtle nuances of difference that we experience with friends that don't have kids, like that's not really talked about. People don't really acknowledge that, but matrescence acknowledges it. Not to mention kind of career changes. Many women that I've worked with, once they become moms, their whole idea of what they want to do in the world or their career has now shifted. And so it's a real transformative process and it's unique to everyone, but it's a real thing. And so I think to your question, why does having this word matter? I think it matters so much because when I learned this term, it put a language to what I'd been struggling with and feeling for 9 years because I didn't discover this word until I'd been a mom. I had a 9-year-old, 7 and 6, and it was so validating because nobody really talks about some of these changes that we experience in matrescence. What happens, understandably, is we just think it's something that we're struggling with. Like we tend to turn against ourselves when it's not represented in our language and in our culture, which matrescence isn't yet. Then we just think, oh, I guess I'm just like the mom struggling with it, or we just don't have the words to that make sense of our inner experience, like our emotions and our thoughts and our behaviors and the whole way that we're changing. So we need a definition. We need the language to sort of make sense of what we're going through.
Yeah. Yeah, recently learned biopsychosocial, like this
Yeah.
kind of thing that people talk about. And it's like, you know, biologically, psychologically, socially, and then you can add cultural, spiritual, financial, like all these
Yeah.
different changes that
Yeah.
really do occur. even like I didn't birth my children, but all of a sudden I'm like sleep training and, you know, trying to manage time, but in a weird warped way. Like I don't baby time and toddler time,
Yeah.
like those are different times. I never even thought about like, oh, better get someone to bed at 7 so they sleep longer and
Yeah.
like, okay, uh-oh, they missed nap, so we better, uh-oh, my tomorrow's gonna look terrible. Like
Yeah.
so many mental and physical things, and then just being so physically tired and not sleeping. And so there is just biological stuff happening. There's mental load. There's just a lot more demands. And it is something I think we don't like as moms.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
pleasant to have all of this extra pressure when you think you're going to be just walking along the beach looking beautiful. And then the next thing you know, you're like, haven't showered, haven't brushed your teeth, haven't put a bra on, like can't figure out how to like get out the door, get people like once you have a second kid, like you're like, I can't get these two people in car
Yeah.
seats. It's nothing like you thought. And then I notice for me and for my clients is then they don't like it. They don't like momming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they like parts of it. They don't like other parts of it. And then
Sure.
they feel like a bad mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because even though we do know, okay, we're going to be doing the naps and you got to get the diaper bag and all this stuff, what nobody really talks about is that inner ambivalence, right? Because of the myths, which are acknowledged in matrescence as well, is that these ideas of how we think it's going to be versus the lived reality, they're incongruent. And so when we're actually in it, oh yes, I signed up for this. I want this, but we don't understand that inner turmoil of the parts of you that sometimes are going to say, "Yeah, I'd like to tap out of this part, please."
Yeah, I
And
want
that
the
makes
kid, but
sense.
I don't want
Yeah.
all this. Like it's not, it's kind of like when you look at a middle schooler, especially I read not in your book, but somewhere else, these
Hmm.
stages of matrescence. So emerging motherhood, middle motherhood, and late motherhood was kind of this definition.
Hmm.
And I think it's helpful to think about where you are. And then I actually added post motherhood because
Okay.
I am somewhat in post motherhood. Like my matrescence period, it's
Yeah.
over. Like I
Okay.
still have children, but they're in college and it's just very, very different.
Okay.
And, but like those early emerging motherhood stage is that early matrescence. It's like looking at a middle schooler and they're so uncomfortable and awkward and they don't know how to act and how to do and what like that feeling you get and you remember being in that
Mhm.
early stage of adolescence and it's not great. It just
Yeah.
feels awful and you don't know who you are, what you're supposed to be doing, what matters, what doesn't. Like and I think that happens to moms like that 0 to 4, 0 to 5, like those early preschool years are so insane.
Hmm.
Like what happens in parenting. Um, and the juggling that needs to go into it. And I think in a lot in your book, you talk about this feeling torn. So you
Hmm.
call it the inner ambivalence.
Hmm.
Can you define inner ambivalence? Because I don't think everyone, that's not,
Yeah. Are you referring to when I talk about the inner split, like the mom you were before and then
yeah, the
the mom you
person
are
you were
after?
before, and
Yes,
then,
that's
yeah,
right.
and
Yeah.
like that emerging
Hmm.
person and how awful it feels to not, I don't know who you are, know what you're supposed to do. It's just uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable and so isolating because not enough moms are honest because I think we have such a fear of others not seeing us as a good mom and because we want to be good at this, right?
We
Like
are
this
good
matters
moms,
to
but
us, of
yes, we don't
course.
like some of these
But
parts.
the uncomfortableness, sometimes we misinterpret it. We think
Yes.
that that's a sign. So because it's really hard, we think because we see these images on social media and all these moms, like you had imagined, I'm going to be strolling with the baby and it's nothing but looking great and all smiles. But
Well, and
like,
right now there's the moms on Instagram who like have many children and they just make their own milk and stuff. Like, I don't I don't know what is going on, you know.
I don't know.
That's another version of motherhood that wasn't I didn't have children with Instagram. That didn't exist
Yeah,
when
yeah.
my kids were born 2004, 2006. They're old.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I had TV to look at.
Like
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Magazines. You had magazines.
magazines, yeah, there was like not even Facebook, it was not social media time, and I still had a lot of
Yeah,
pressure in my head.
that's
So I
right.
just think acknowledging this is true for young girls, like adolescents.
Yeah,
They look around at them at what I don't know, they think is supposed to be what you're supposed to look like or act
that's
like
right.
or whatever. And yeah, and then yeah, so that mixed reality, but then also individualized, you are torn. And I think you talk
Hmm.
about it in the book a little bit, like I wanted to keep working on my career, or I really wanted to maybe I like I have a client who has three
Hmm.
young kids and she wants to
Yeah.
build this really big business. And it's just constantly this
Yeah.
feeling of feeling bad, not because she's away from her kids. She's managed to be okay, like with the
Hmm.
timing, and is there when they're, you know, out of school or whatever.
Hmm.
But she feels bad because she's not thinking about her children all the time.
Okay.
Like the guilt, like
Yeah.
it's like I'm not even I forget about them, and I don't know. We just it is such a mind fuck, and I think
Mhm.
having the word matrescence is so helpful. Um, but can you talk a little bit about that feeling torn between not even who you thought you would be as a mom, but like
Okay.
who you were as a woman,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah, well, it's a transformation of identity. Like if I were to really boil it down, I mean, you're right. It does affect all these areas in your life. And ultimately, you're transforming. I mean, through matrescence, I think of the phoenix. Like we are butterflies, but we're in this cocoon for a period of time because you're figuring out constantly growing and learning alongside your child. So you're figuring out what is, how to be a mom to a newborn, and that's just nuts. And you're in postpartum and it's just like survival mode of like the foundational, skills of just, am I eating? Am I sleeping? It's just the basics, daily survival. And then you start to come out of that. And now you have this, eventually this being's running around, engaging with the world. And else, of course, there are a million tasks, but you're also starting to feel, um, while many moms will have an ease of prioritizing the child because kids are so born so dependent, right?
yeah,
Like
they demand a lot of.
biologically, like that, I don't think there's much argument, in the mom space around that. Like, yes, they take priority. But like over time, our inner needs, like that are constantly sort of sacrificed, and the parts of us that, have ambitions, whether it's ambitions for work or interests or things that we are now not getting for a period of time, eventually that stuff starts bubbling up and seeping out in ways, and we feel that ambivalence around it because we can feel it or think it, and then we start to just feel bad about it. We might say something to a friend or a family member, and if they diminish or don't validate for us. So I think that happens a lot is moms will start to test the waters by saying certain things about how they feel. And then too often it's responded to negatively, like it's invalidating or it's like,
Or it's
or just a
shocked, like
fix
other
it part,
people are,
but
yeah,
like a
saying like,
well-meaning husband, let's say, but he says something that's just like, that's not what I really want to hear, right? We want to just feel validated in our experience, but we don't want someone to solve it for us because we're in matrescence. It really is about us finding our own way through, but there's just not enough awareness and support. So what happens is women just think, oh, I guess I'm just not doing this right, this whole motherhood. So then they start to feel that shame and that guilt that you said, like it just becomes this inner emotional poison because we don't have that language and that understanding and support systems around us the way that we do teenagers, right? I mean, think of all the knowledge and all the research and all the understanding that we now parenting, we have all of this information to treat teens well so that they can thrive and develop through this profound 10 years, give or take, of identity transformation. But moms don't have any of that right now.
mhm. Well, you get it in postpartum, I think, and then after that, it's like everything you're going through is associated with the child's age. It's like, and I'm guilty of this. Like, well, that's what it's like
Mhm.
to have preschoolers. Oh, that's what it's like to have busy
Yeah.
years when you're driving everybody to
Yeah.
after school sports. Like, oh, that's what it's like to have a teenager.
Yeah.
Instead, because I think sometimes we can look at teenagers two ways and think, oh, you're going through this because you're a teenager. And it's
Mhm.
like, mm. that doesn't help me label what is happening for me, as a
Yeah.
teen. But then also with teenagers, we'll say to them, we'll take it personally. We'll take their behavior personally. And so we don't validate, like, oh, they're in a time where they're needing to spend more time with their peers. They're in a time where they're needing to spend more time alone in
Hmm.
order to find their new identity. They need to reject
Yeah.
the identity or the notion I have of them to find their real identity, which typically circles back to whatever you originally thought of as them. But they have to go through this process, right? And so I think sometimes we're good with teenagers and sometimes we're not.
Hmm.
And that I think sometimes we're good with moms, but we'll talk about it in ways of saying, oh, that's because of their age. And I think if we can talk about it like, oh, no, that's because you're going
Hmm.
through
Hmm.
a transition, you're in matrescence, your struggle isn't because you have a 2.5-year-old. Your struggle is because you are in the middle of an identity shift. I think that would be useful.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Mhm.
I get the intent on that is to sort of normalize it. You're right.
Yes.
I mean, that's not wrong. That's not a bad way per se, but yeah, I would follow up with the curiosity about what does it mean for that mom in that moment, right? So what is the unique inner struggle that she's facing around that? And if we're not curious, we don't know because it is those blanket statements that don't leave room for like our individual experience.
Enjoy it. They're going to go so fast. Someday you'll miss this stage. Like, all those kind of
Yeah.
remarks. And it's funny because now that I'm like on the other side of this, like
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
all very true. Like,
Yes. Yes.
don't sweat the small stuff. It doesn't really
Sure.
matter. But you can't tell a teenager like someday you won't have acne like that. Like it's not that
Hmm.
big of a deal. Like
Hmm.
you know, someday you'll get used to those hips. It's fine.
Hmm. Hmm.
We hope. Um, but it's like you can't say that. It's true that they might come to the other side and find peace or go through the transition and be okay. You don't
Hmm.
always have a 2.5-year-old. Someday they go and they're 10 and like they can like
Yeah.
make their own quesadilla. Like that happens.
Yeah.
But if you minimize it, it's not it doesn't help the person in the moment. And I think even like the curiosity piece is so helpful for the person to ask maybe themselves, like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm struggling, right? A mom says, hey, I'm struggling. They should
Hmm.
say it to themselves. They say it to a friend, they say it to their partner, whoever, say it to their
Yeah.
mom. And then they might get dismissed.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's like to have this age, or that's what it is to
That's
be a
right.
mom.
Hmm.
It might be nice. Maybe it's not dismissive. It's like, yeah, no, yeah, okay, of course you're tired. Of course you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to then go quiet and ask themselves, like, well, what part of my identity am I struggling with? Or what are some good questions you think they could ask themselves, even to coach themselves through a better understanding?
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely, and that's kind of what I argue for in my book, is that it's our relationship with ourself that we can do something about. I think right now it's tough because modern day motherhood, parenting, it is a lot. There's a ton of demands on parents now.
We're
And
calling it in the parent education space intensive
yeah,
parenting.
the
Intensive
intensive,
parenting.
that's right.
Yeah.
The intensive parenting phase, and the majority of that does still land on moms that are still doing a lot of the, traditional duties, if you will. So a lot of it is around not getting enough equality from partners because it's just too much. So that's the situation. And I think for a mom to, number one, if she's not feeling seen and heard in her life, because it does matter. I think you like who you're connected to. So if it's not a supportive spouse or the spouse is just trying to like fix it but not getting it right, who do you have that's going to sit with you and get curious with you if you can? And maybe that's a therapist and maybe it's a coach. Like maybe it might not be within your inner circle. And then from there is just because then we sort of sometimes need external validation before we give it to ourselves, right? Because many moms inner protective systems because they've absorbed this idea of being self-sacrificing and they have all these myths in their subconscious, so they're going to be very defended against sort of validating themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Well, when you don't have enough space to, um, if you can't say to yourself, like, oh, I'm in a transition and I'm struggling in an identity shift and I'm torn, emotionally ambivalent, like I want multiple things at once. Like I have a lot of different feelings here. If you don't
Yeah.
have that language for yourself, then you're going to need to have somebody who has some professional probably to say it back to you.
Yeah.
Then you can start to internalize it. So I think you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There's that external validation piece. But let's pretend that everyone listening right now is
Okay.
getting it right now because you're a therapist,
Right.
I'm a coach, right? So they are listening to this podcast episode. They're like, holy shit, I'm in matrescence.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I want my husband to hear this. I want my wife to hear this. I want my partner to hear this. Like what in the world? Now I know, right? I need all my
Yeah.
best friends to hear this
Yeah.
so that they can understand that, oh, we've been in emerging motherhood and middle motherhood, and we've been struggling with
Mm-hmm.
some identity around the tension between who we were and where we are now, what we
Yeah.
want, and the limitations that are available to us. Um, we're struggling with the mental load, right? All this new stuff I have to think about.
Yeah.
So they're validating within, and then like, what do they do? What do they do with it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is, so once they get that word, just
yeah,
I would even say notice how what stuff that brings up for you. Right? So once you have that word, like usually when I tell moms about matrescence, I literally see light shine, like their eyes widen.
yes.
And I know I need to give them time because they're processing already. So it's like like your brain rate kind of automatically goes in hindsight. Well, now that I have this word that explains like all the changes in my relationships, all that inner split and that inner turmoil and all the physical, my relationship with my body and how I feel towards it. That's part of matrescence and all these myths and how, now our maternal style is part of matrescence. So as you're developing your sense of how do I want to mother, it's like you can't not think of how you were mothered. So all of that stuff is coming up, right? It's all grist for the mill, as you will, and it's there. And so now that you have a word, I would just invite a mom to just, okay, take that in and now think back to your experience. Knowing that word now, how does that change how you see? eh, how you see your struggles through this lens of this profound transformational process that you've been in that you didn't have the language and probably didn't get the support. Like you said, you might have maybe for postpartum, but for the most part, nobody else was talking about it in these terms and in these ways. You've probably just been struggling internally with it.
Yeah.
What does it do now that you have that word? And nine
Hopefully
times
it's
out of
lots of
10,
self-love. Yeah.
yeah,
Self-love.
it's that the heart opens and we
Yeah.
just like that's what I've witnessed and
Oh,
it's so beautiful because just having it and like it just we feel the compassion for ourselves and having it like women will weep and it's so moving. And so from there, I mean, yes, there are some other to-dos, but I think that's the most it's like an awakening moment, right?
yeah, I agree. Even when I was reading the book the first time, I read this section in Matrescence, and then I went back into my own narrative, and I recognized that I was talking about this with my friends when my youngest was 5, like in kindergarten. He was in a kinder that was like a half day. So it was 20 hours a week or something
Yeah.
like that. And then I knew that he was going to go to full day in first grade. And my older one was already in full day.
Mhm.
And I kept thinking 30 hours a week. Like that my children were going to be at school for 30
Mhm.
hours a week. And I was like, what am I? Most people don't think this way, but I was like, what am I going to do with 30 hours a week?
Uh-huh.
Because I had been poured into the identity of caregiving, which I liked and
Hmm.
enjoyed for the whatever. It was mixed, right?
Yeah, sure.
But
Sure.
I liked being around preschoolers. Like my
Yeah.
natural
Yeah.
personality is lens. I'm very childlike and playful,
Yeah.
so it's very fun
Yeah.
for me. Middle ages were rougher for me, like
Got it.
6 to 11. I was like, I don't know what to do, boys.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
jump on the trampoline. It's so hot. Like I didn't want
Yeah.
to do a lot of the boy stuff Maybe
Yeah.
with girls it would have felt different. But anyway, I think that was when I really wrestled with my identity as
Mm.
a
Yeah.
mom now, like as a woman now, as a
Yeah.
person now. Those years I was just kind of in it. It was just
Yeah.
like finding my way, talking to other moms. What are you guys doing? Like a lot of mom groups, so important at that stage.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, okay, I want to find a new identity within motherhood that would work. And that's when I started my coaching practice.
Aha.
Um, in 2012, which was when my son was 6.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I noticed with my other friends, we all kind of went through it at the same time. Like,
Hmm.
kind of once if you don't homeschool and your kids go into school age,
Yeah.
you start to have a little room,
A little more
a
space
little more
for
time, a
you.
little more
Yeah.
space. Yeah. Like, but
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it's very limited. You got to do pickups. You got to be there after school, unless you get care,
Hmm.
caregiver. It's just really hard. And,
Hmm.
it's hard to find space to be you within matrescence, I think.
It is. It's incredibly challenging,
Mhm.
and I remember I had my third and I was done my maternity leave and yeah, because you're just like you're either with a kid or you're at work and then you're back
Yeah.
with so whether like your truncated bookends of like mornings and then the dinner and then
If
the
you work,
bedtime.
yes.
Yeah, so and then I remember like and I work with some couples too who have little kids and trying to help them navigate that. That's one of the common themes is like, well, where do we get the time? Because at the end of the day, I'm so tired that if there are, especially with the relationship, it's like there are some things we're trying to navigate, how to parent. And oftentimes there's different ideas on how to parent, but there's no space and time to actually talk about it because if you only get an hour together at the end of the day, both parents are so tired and they don't want to stir the pot and they probably aren't in the best energy to have a potentially difficult conversation
And they
or
only get that hour if they've
that's
got
it.
bedtime on lock. Like,
Oh yeah,
because
and then
as a
you're in
parenting
many.
coach, I
Oh
coach bedtime, morning. Like, I'm in
yeah,
the weeds all the time. And it's
got
like,
it.
you only get that hour if
Yeah,
you have some good boundaries and limits
yeah,
and you've taught your kids how to go to bed.
that's it.
Otherwise, you really don't have any time.
No, you might not. You might have one partner falling asleep with one kid at
Yes.
8 p.m. and then yeah. And we're passing ships in the night, and that's so true. And so finding the time. So I think what's pivotal for moms, and I hope that I wrote my book in a way to explain that connecting with ourself, and then even if we're still talking about partners, but it's you can do it in little micro moments. Like we don't need to do 20 minutes of meditation with ourselves to still get a benefit of just like quickly deep breath, hand on heart. I talk about the one breath meditation in my book because during COVID, that was, what my therapist suggested to me. She's like a one breath meditation. And of course, I'm like, how is one breath a meditation, right? I have a resistant part that wants to argue it. But when I tried it, I could notice a difference. Like to go inside, take a breath, and even just say to your parts, okay, I know this is hard and I care. Two phrases. And then with your hand on your heart, it actually, that gesture we know will affect our, neurology in our brain. It activates oxytocin. Our body feels the warmth and that care. So it literally does change our brain in a microsecond. And that's a compassionate gesture. And if we do that for ourselves and then with our partner, here, little bits of contact we know from Gottman research and couples therapy, it's those little micro moments that matter.
Yeah.
And so it is doable. So I just offer that as like hope that there are ways that we can help and heal ourselves in those doable moments of modern day motherhood. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible.
Yeah. And this episode comes out right after an episode where I talk about the calm break. And
Okay,
it
perfect.
is, checking in with yourself, aligning with your values, label with love, and
Mm,
then move. Like, so move your body or
yeah.
move your mind. And it is that kind of like just checking in,
Yeah.
aligning, like, who am I? Who do I want to be?
Mm,
Labeling, this is hard, or I've got this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I love, using your body, like putting your hands on your heart. Um, it is it's such a like magic trick, and it doesn't
Mm.
take hardly any, and it doesn't take anything, it's very
I
easy to
know.
do. And
It's
then
true.
just kind of gently like, yeah, breath, or just kind of a stretch, like a shimmy shake, move that cortisol, move that stress juice through.
Yeah.
Um, I've been teaching that kind of idea a lot in my practice of just three three deep breaths. Like I'm breathing
Okay.
in, I'm
Yep.
breathing out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm
Mm.
breathing in, I'm breathing out.
Yep.
It's just a couple more than one, but
It's
it gives
doable.
it gives
Yeah.
you just enough, I think, of that moment, right?
Yeah.
To because it doesn't take much, but you do have to kind of go, yes, this is I'm gonna intentionally take a little
Yeah.
break. And that can be so powerful. And I think in this conversation, recognizing like when you're doing that labeling
Mm-hmm.
in a calm break, like labeling, like especially these early years, like I'm in matrescence. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a transition. I'm still figuring out who I am as a mom. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
figuring out how I want to show up, or like I'm still learning tools and skills, really validating that like you're not supposed to know everything right now. You're in this
Yes.
transition. Now that I have raised my kids, I know what to do, to be honest. Not that uh, did it. Like, but it's in
Yeah.
hindsight, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, I figured that all out. Like, because I did figure it out, because I already had a 6-year old. I did it. Like,
Yeah.
particularly my 6-year old, the one I raised, I got that one. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you're in the middle, you're still figuring it out all the time. Like, I don't know how to have college age students yet. I'm guessing.
That's right. But because you're in it. But that, I mean, that's how it works, right? That's what I'm realizing. The older I get, like the more wisdom we get. And we're not, we have to learn through our own trials and errors. And then now we can offer that to the younger moms because you're right. Like, as you said, I wrote the book I wish I had. It is true. And so now I want to be the voice that says, I want to go back or go to moms and create spaces because I wished I had that, and spread the word about matrescence because the more moms that understand, like I don't want other moms to have to live 10, 20 years before they learn the term. I heard one story, I think this might be in my book, about like a grandma where the young woman, we were in a training together, and she tells her grandma about this word matrescence, and she's like 80 something, and she's started to sort of get teary or wet in the eyes and was like, "Oh, I thought there was something wrong with me." And so that's what happens if we don't have that term, which is a real thing. Like it was an anthropologist who came up with this term, who studied women becoming mothers. And to not have a word that explains all of these changes that we go through, it just does such a disservice to moms because we deserve to understand ourselves and understand what we're going through. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can offer that, darling. Like we can,
Well,
go
and I'm
back
not even
and
saying like, sure, I have the wisdom now because I'm done.
yeah.
But when you're in the middle, it's so easy to think you should know better, or other people have figured this out already. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I think normalizing this I'm learning. Like
Yeah. That's
I'm
right.
becoming. This is a
Yeah.
podcast called Become a Calm Mama. It's
Yeah.
continuously a journey towards becoming.
Yes.
And when we are in that labeling and we're gentle with ourselves and we're like, "Ah, okay, I'm still figuring this out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a struggle. Like
That's
it's
right.
okay, and whatever that kind of move your mind kind of
Hmm.
ideas in especially in the matrescent, I've always thought of it like I think I've referred to this as motherhood,
Hmm.
and I've had trouble labeling it, but in my mind, it has been essentially motherhood.
Hmm.
And when I think about motherhood, it is like my experience of being my children's mother and this period of time where I was in motherhood. And
Hmm.
I am no longer in motherhood. I know that that's true.
Hmm.
And letting that period of my life be over. It's part of this shifting that happens at the age and stage I'm in. But so motherhood is what I've called it, and having the word matrescence is also very valuable. And one of the distinctions I've made is in the acts of mothering.
Hmm.
And I still do a lot of mothering of my children.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how I figured it out for myself. Like this period of time of my motherhood,
Hmm.
like young adulthood ends, right? Or whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so this period of matrescence, like that's why I think of myself as post. Oh, it's funny. I wrote instead of writing in my notes, emerging matrescence, I actually literally wrote emerging motherhood. They're the same in
Okay.
my mind.
Got
Um,
it. Yeah.
and so the words are interchangeable for me.
Hmm.
And um, but the acts of mothering don't stop. I get
Hmm.
to continue to be my children's mother.
Hmm.
And that's beautiful. Like, I think sometimes people feel scared to let go of motherhood or recognize that it's a period of time. Like, you don't want to be in adolescence forever.
No, and that's probably why, I mean, what I love about matrescence, and while some people have said, they think it's like 7 years. I mean, I disagree with that because of the many stages that you see women go through, right? So, like, you've launched kids, the quote unquote empty nest, what we call in our culture of the empty nest. Some people, I think they say syndrome.
Syndrome. I
Just
call
like,
it a roomier nest in this stage.
yeah,
Be roomier because
yeah.
they're back and forth all the time in this
That's right.
house.
That's right.
Yeah,
And then,
it's
right,
not
it's
empty. It
different
feels
now.
quite full
It's not
sometimes.
empty.
And then
That's right.
sometimes it's very empty. So it's kind of
Yeah.
roomier. Like I have a lot
Yeah.
more room, a lot more time to think about what I want to do. It's so cool. Like getting out of matrescence, by the way, is like
Yeah.
great. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when you get through adolescence and you're like, yeah, no,
I
good.
get
Like
all this
I'm like,
freedom again. That's right.
yeah,
You have the freedom. You're
yeah.
like,
And I like the
healthy.
idea of emerging, middle, and late
Yeah.
for moms to kind of think of themselves like, yeah, the emerging motherhood, emerging matrescence
Yeah.
is a period of time that is really challenging. If you think about early adolescence,
Hmm.
it's very uncomfortable and
Very
then
bumpy. Yeah.
very bumpy, right? And then you kind of get into like 16, 17, 18, they start to kind of move through and they're a little more predictable, like, but they're still in a transition, these
Yeah.
adolescents. And
That's
then that
right.
kind of late adolescence
Right.
is that we're kind of where my young adults are.
Yeah.
And, they've kind of got it, but they still need a lot of support. So it's just kind of
And
thinking of
it
ourselves as
changes
like
though.
raising your own kids. Like, yeah, there should
Yeah.
be state. I don't know. The literature can say what it wants, research can say what it wants. But I was just thinking, like, for me to
Yeah.
frame it up for moms, it's like there's these kind of three periods of time. It depends on how your kids are staged too.
Yes. That's
Um, but that it's a process of time. You're going to be
right.
raising kids, and then that period is over.
Hmm.
You raise them.
That's right. But like you've said, nowadays there is this like revolving door, right? Where,
Yeah.
yeah, kids don't totally launch. And some of that, right, has to do with the rest of the world and where things are at. So, I mean, it's always like fluid. Like
Mhm.
that's what's so interesting to me is we can, even when we say stages, there's fluidity in that. And
Of
there's also
course. Yeah.
individual variation. I mean, you might be a mother to a kid with, very high special needs that will persist. And so you
Yes.
won't be launching the way that you thought. And so that's a part of your matrescence, right? Is feelings of grief and loss maybe around that or needing to adapt to that. And so it's so nuanced and it's so complex. And with that, I think it's really beautiful. Like it's multifaceted and the complexity of us humans. And I love just to jump back to, Darlene, I liked how you said, like, we should be given permission and space to not know and to be learning as we go because that is what we're doing. But I
It's what
think
it
in our
is.
culture, like so many moms have perfectionistic parts, right? Which I talk about in my book. And I get that. So we have these inner manager parts that just like we want to do it right. We want to be quote unquote successful according to society and be a good mom and get that external praise and all of these human things. But it leads us away. Makes us depleted because we're trying to be super mom. And it doesn't leave room for us to admit, I don't know. So like many moms, right, I think have parts that they're performing perfection. And so it leaves some moms who and feel isolated because it's like, oh, I guess everybody, like you said, everybody's got it figured out but me. I guess
Everyone's performing quite well.
everyone's
Yeah.
performing so well online, but even in the park, in a school pickup, and I've had clients like who will say, "Oh yeah, so my preteen hates me now." Like she cracks a joke and says, "Oh, my preteen hates me," and they all just stare at her like, "Oh, really?"
I
And I'm
know.
just, oh,
And
I
like
just
that's part
get
of
so
it's
frustrated.
what it's supposed to be like when you have a preteen.
Yeah,
And that is emotionally challenging
yeah.
as a mother to
Yeah.
you're going through a new period of time raising these kids. And
It's
it's
so
like,
new. That's right.
yeah,
And to have these other moms who didn't feel like they've obviously felt like they couldn't be vulnerable. They couldn't be with that mom and her open vulnerability. And there's just too many examples of that. So
so
I
many.
hope that, us speaking about matrescence will plant a seed for moms to recognize you're not supposed to have it all figured out. You don't need to perform perfection. You're actually doing yourself a disservice by, pushing yourself to be perfect and not giving yourself breathing room to evolve in this matrescence phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. As we close, I noticed that in your book, you had kind of talked about the gifts of matrescence sort of at the end.
Yeah.
And uh, I am so grateful for the opportunity to raise kids. Like,
Mm,
I have this thing, this parenting manifesto that I created, and parenting is my opportunity for growth, is one of
yeah.
the statements. And I would not be who I am today had I not parented these particular children. And they both have special needs. They were both
Hmm.
adopted, like trauma, like we got a lot going on over here.
Hmm.
And I have a high ACE score, like I got a lot of trauma.
Hmm.
So you put those things in a soup and it was messy. Um,
Yeah.
but because I wanted to be the mom I wanted to be, and like I knew who I wanted to show up as,
Yeah.
and I had defined that for myself, that then I was like kind of forced to heal and
Yeah.
grow and adapt and like soothe my nervous system and understand my cortisol, like all sorts of stuff that I'm so grateful for.
Yes.
And I think if we can see ourselves in matrescence and then see that this is an opportunity to become who we
Yeah.
want to be and develop the identity as a mother that we want. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's version, but we
Hmm.
do have agency and we get to like define it and then grow. And your book, Unburdening Motherhood, is a an amazing tool for someone who wants to go through a healing journey. It says your subtitle, A Guide to Breaking Cycles, Healing Trauma, and Becoming a Self-Led Mom.
Yeah.
And it's like if anybody listening wants to take matrescence like by the by the horns or whatever and like ride it, that getting your book would be really useful, because I think if you're going to choose to have matrescence be an opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
you're going to have some pain,
Yes.
and having someone to walk you through that, and then obviously reaching out for therapy or coaching or whatever it is. So I just want to say thank you for naming matrescence, and yeah, writing this book and the work you've done. So is there anything you would like to leave moms, an encouraging note or anything you want to share?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sterling. I mean, I would just echo what you just said, and that's because I resonate. That's been my experience. It wasn't what I thought was going to happen to me, that's for sure. Like, I wasn't like, I'm going to be a mom and totally, I didn't see it as a spiritual sort of awakening part of my journey and my spirituality. Like, but it very much is, which sometimes you don't realize because we're so focused on the tasks of, teaching children and like we're socializing these humans. But there is something profoundly mystical in it, which I think is explained in this word matrescence, is we are transforming constantly. We're learning and we're growing and healing, Our children are those little mirrors to us about what's wanting to be healed. And so I think it's an amazing portal. Motherhood is like a portal of our own healing and transformation. And so it's a hopeful message. Yes, it's hard, but the expression, no mud, no lotus, right?
Yeah.
So that in a nutshell is how I view matrescence. So I try to help moms understand it's a real growth opportunity. And if they're up for it, I would love for them to read my book and reach out and let me know how it lands.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good, good, good. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. So you can get Unburdening Motherhood by Dr. Angele Close. Yeah. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, darling.
Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.